Good morning, church. Children's Church are following MJ, I believe. If you are in that age category and would like to go. Last week, Marsha and I were able to get away, so I thank you for that. That's our anniversary weekend, and we went and had a great time. And, you know, what exciting things will we do? We sat by a pool and read books. And it was awesome. We had a great time just to have that getaway, so thank you for the freedom to be able to do that. And last week we had somebody else step in. Aaron White showed up and he presented the message, and he's young, and he's new, and he's starting. And it's scary, and it's awkward, and all of that stuff, when we put that together, we're kind of talking about that today. So a question that I have is we're gonna speculate as we look into the future a little bit. What if? Okay, what if? So that's kind of the premise of today's message. What if? Or what would church look like if? Okay? So this is gonna be a little different topical message because I wasn't here last week. I'm going to jump in this week, and then next week I also won't be here, I think. Lord willing, Becker's preaching next week, and continue to pray for him and his back. This has just been incapacitating, maybe. And then the next day, maybe it's good. And it's just so difficult for them. So just continue to pray for John and Misty through this ordeal. In Numbers chapter 8. Numbers chapter 8. This is part of the Pentateuch, our first 5 books that arguably Moses wrote. So Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. So it's our 4th book of the Bible. And in here, he spends time, we bounce back and forth between narrative and then some instruction for God's people. In here, we're talking about the retirement of the Levites. Okay? Now the Levites were one of the 12 tribes of Israel. The Levites had a special job. What was their job? The temple. Okay? Their job was kind of to take care of the temple, or at this point, the temple didn't exist yet, so in the tabernacle, just the temple that was a tent, not a brick. So their job is to pick up the tabernacle, move it, set it up again, take care of the bread and the candles and the oil and the sacrifices. The priests came from the Levites. Not every Levite was a priest, but every priest was a Levite. Okay, they were like a subgroup out of there. These guys had a job. And why did they get this job? How did the Levites first kind of pop their head up that they're different than the other 11? Say it again. They stood with Moses when? It was one of the highlights of humanity when we decided, let's make a golden calf and worship that. Okay? Wow. Moses is up on Mount Sinai talking with God, literally talking with him and going back and forth. And while Moses is connecting with God and finding out how do we worship him, the people are down here at the base of the mountain being ridiculous. So Moses came down, we broke the 10 Commandments, we ground up the altar, and then there was a moment where God said, okay, Moses says, who's with me? And the Levites said, I am. And he had the Levites kill their other idolatrous Israelites. So they had to kill their own people, like a civil war, so to speak. And that's when the Levites kind of stuck their head up that they're a little different. And they end up being the secret service for the tabernacle. They now have a job, and it's distinct. In Numbers chapter 8, he says this, And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, this applies to the Levites, from 25 years old and upward. They shall come to do duty in the service of the tent of meeting. Okay, so they've got a job, and their job is to do their duty at the tent of meeting, or what we would probably call the tabernacle. Verse 25, and from the age of 50 years, they shall withdraw from the duty of the service and serve no more. So they actually had an expiration date. They could serve from 25 to 50 on the duties of the temple. After that, verse 26, they minister to their brothers in the tent of meeting by keeping guard, but they shall do no service. Thus shall you do to the Levites in assigning their duties. So from 25 to 50, the Levites were in charge. Now remember, this is kind of a physical job. One, they started off their career with swords in their hands. These are not, pansy seminary students, right? These are guys that aren't afraid. These are manly men. And now their job is to move the tabernacle. So they've got to pick this thing up and they've got to walk, because they're roaming the wilderness because we decided idols were cooler than God. So when they're roaming around, they have to carry this tabernacle. From 25 to 50. After 50, they're retired from carrying that, and then they're told their job shifts. Now your job shifts from doing the duty to encouraging your brothers. Okay, you shift to a support role under those 25 to 50-year-olds who are carrying, literally, they're carrying the responsibility with them. Okay? So, we're going to use this as kind of a springboard idea. So that's how I picked the number 50. So, what would the church look like? These are hypothetical, okay? What would the church look like if maybe in 6 months, everybody 50 and older disappeared? Let's just say we were gone, or we all moved, or heaven forbid, we all died. That'd be a rough day. But whatever. Let's just say we're casting our wand here. What would happen if everybody 50 or older disappeared from the church? What would the younger people do? What would they do if they were left without the 50 plus? Would they step in to pre-existing leadership roles that are now vacant? Would they say, no, we're not going to do it this way at all. We're going to do it this way? Would they just get in their cars and go to a different church and say, well, this one was fun for a while, and it's gone? And would they just pack up and go somewhere else? What would they do? So that's this is our question we're pondering right now. What would the leadership look like? How would the young people run the church? How would they decide who's in charge, or if we have $10, what do we do with those $10? Who would decide that? How would they decide that? Maybe what we're thinking is, well, if we have young and old people, we can come up with the pros and the cons of both sides. Okay? So maybe we could come up with a chart of what's going to happen. Would the church really survive if we took all the old people out? Those young people, they no responsibility, no commitment, no desire to serve. They're probably just going to die. The church is going to go when we go. Maybe. Or maybe the young people say, oh good, the old people are out of the way. Now we can do it right. We got rid of all those sticks in the mud, and now we can finally flourish. We know how to reach our community way better than those old people who are still doing it the way they did 50 years ago. I mean, holy, holy, holy? Come on. I sang that 50 years ago, or near 50. That's old. We need to have something new or something cutting edge. Maybe there's a possibility. What would it look like? I don't know. I don't know. This was one of the slides that were in the announcement, and I asked Jonathan if he could stick this in here. If you're interested in helping during worship, okay, we're looking for here are some examples of things that we're looking for. That's not an exclusive list, but just some things that old people could think of. Is there something else that needs to be done? I don't know. Last week, we didn't have our video. Do you know why we didn't have our video? I'll tell you. Because some training was going on. Training. In church, what do we call training? It starts with a D. Discipleship. Where we're taking and we're passing on to somebody else. Part of the issue, or part of a trap that I think we could fall into, is maybe what we should do is we should have, because if we want to put our best foot forward, maybe we should have the best person preaching. The best preacher is the one who should preach, because that way we're doing our best. The singers, who should sing? Only the best singers should sing. Who should work sound? Probably somebody without hearing aids. But we need to have, we could talk about how to set up church. And the way to set up church to really glorify God and give Him our best is to only let the best people in those positions. Is that a way of doing church? Yes. Is it a good way of doing church? No. If we are so focused on certain individuals, then we'll miss sight of church. We'll miss it. Church is not here to exemplify our best. We're not here to show off for anybody. We're not here to show the community just how good our music, preaching, greeting, chairs, air conditioner. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? That's not what church is. Okay? We need to have some training going on. But training, discipleship, is hard. It's hard. Several years ago, I took a camping trip out to Colorado with a group of men from Jerry's church. And we went out to Colorado, and one of the things we did, and I think Jonathan went as well. He went with us, and I think it was just the two of us from the Baptist church that tagged along with them. And one of the things we did is I taught them how to start a fire by friction. So with a fireboard down on the bottom, and the drill and the spindle, and you're doing the whole bow and drill thing, and I taught them how to do that. And these guys had never seen that before. It was really cool to be able to pass on some knowledge that I had that they didn't have. Now, if we were waiting for them to get the fire started before we could eat supper, we'd still be out there. Some of them just really struggled. So as I'm seeing somebody struggle, what could my tendency be? Well, I'll just do it. You move out of the way, I'll do it. And then we failed in the training process. We failed when we couldn't pass that on. When we're training people at church, it's going to be complicated and it's going to be cumbersome. Unfortunately for us, or fortunately, it's also commanding. This is what church is. Church is training. It is discipleship. In Mark 16, as we're looking at the tail end, when he says, go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. Go into all the world. Matthew 28, when he says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go ye therefore and make disciples. Go do it. Baptizing, teaching, Behold, I am with you always. Okay, when you look at, say, Matthew 28, he's telling us, go, baptize, teach. Those are all underlined in there. But those are not the main verb. The main command is make disciples. Make disciples. The sub-points of making a disciple are going, teaching, and baptizing. Those are how we're going to make disciples, but this command to make disciples is critically important. But making disciples is difficult. Because for me to make a disciple, I have to wait for you. It's like running relays. Went out and watched a track meet the other day. It was really cool. But that front guy, he has to wait for me when I get there with that baton. There has to be a connection moment. The timing has to be right. Both individuals, the teacher or the guy, both of them have to be in position at the same time to make this handoff of the baton. What we're talking about is the same thing. We've got to have this moment where we're meeting with the experienced and the inexperienced. Don't pretend it's age. I said 50 just so we'd have something to talk about. But don't pretend it's age. It's experience and inexperience. Okay, so I'm definitely not saying all the 50 pluses are the masters. We're not. But there has to be a moment where they meet. And this discipleship needs to happen, and it's going to be complicated. A disciple. When we start, if making disciples is like the number one job of the church, then we have to say, okay, what is a disciple? To become a pupil, to enroll as a student, to instruct, to teach, to follow his precepts and instructions, to be a devoted follower of the Master. Okay, that's a disciple. Notice some of the things that you and I may put way high, God didn't. He didn't put some things that maybe we're going to judge on that list. He didn't talk about how much money did you put in the plate this morning? What are you wearing? How much alcohol did you consume last week? He didn't talk about did you help any little old ladies across the street? He didn't talk about what car you drive, what phone plan you use. It's about following Christ. Now, for that to occur, for me to share my wisdom or whatever, for me to pass it on to the next generation, I have to be following Christ, and I want you to follow with me. In John 13, this is where Jesus, he throws out a new command. What's the greatest commandment? Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, all that one. The second one, love your neighbor as yourself. And then Jesus comes along in 13, he says, now I'm going to throw a new one in here. So he's going to up the ante from loving your neighbor as yourself to 13:34. He says, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. So, the idea of the second greatest commandment, love your neighbor as yourself, we're not going to ask for a show of hands. Okay? Don't do that. Do you love yourself? If I'm supposed to love somebody else as I love me, arguably that's not a real high bar. Because I let myself down all the time. I'm frustrated with me all the time. So that means it's okay for me to be frustrated with you. Or I love my neighbor as Christ loved me, with all of my filth and my error and my sin and my slime all over my body, inside and outside, the corruption that I have, Jesus still loves somebody like me. That's how he wants us to love people. And when we do that, the world will know that we're his disciples. Okay? So if I say, world will know we're his disciples, what does that sound like? That one starts with an E. That the world will know, that's evangelism. Evangelism doesn't have to be a walk up, knock on the door. If you were to die today, do you know for sure you'd go to heaven? Evangelism is sharing the good news. And according to John 13, part of that is just loving people. Love people like Jesus loved us. That's a tall bar. Way higher than me loving you the way I love me. So this idea of being a follower of Christ, let's shift gears. Let's go to the old people. All right, old people. For this to work, this idea of passing on, one, we have got to get it out of our head. This is mine, and you can't have it. This is my pulpit. This is my church. I'm the pastor here. This is my piano. That's my door. Those are my bulletins. Ugh. Stop thinking like that. We are one link in a chain. That the church has gone on way before I came, and Lord willing, it's going to keep going after I'm dead. Unless he comes back. To have a more fluid mentality of passing on the stuff that's mine, to see, no, it's so much different than that. In 2 Timothy, chapter 2, verse 2, he tells us, Paul's talking to his young pastor friend, and he tells them that you've got to train up those who will train others also. He says, and what you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. Entrust to them. Pass it on to them. Jesus didn't save me so that it could stop here. He saved me so that I could continue to share the message that saved me with other people. And it's my job to entrust it to them. Yeah, but they're going to screw it up. They're not going to do it the way I want. I'm already doing it the best way because I'm doing it. And if I pass it off to somebody else, they're going to mess it up. That's so, ick. Can I say that? That's ick. Okay, this idea of thinking that it's such a stationary thought. And for Jesus saying that the church is going to advance on the gates of hell, stationary is not in the vocabulary. For him to say, go ye therefore into all the world, sitting still is not part of the plan. Okay? So, moving on, in Titus 2, when he's talking about training, and he says that the older women are to train the younger women how to love their husbands and their children. They're supposed to be active training. Older people, are you doing that? Have you trained the older ladies, specifically in this text, but we can figure out how we want to stretch that out. Older ladies, are you training younger women how to love their husbands and their children? Is that happening? I promise you this, my wife needed a lot of training to learn how to love this. Okay? It wasn't a mentor. No. It took a church of women to try to help her love me. And to love their children. And I know Mother's Day and Hallmark cards, they're all lies. All of them. That we love, this special moment between our mother and her children. They always love their children. Really? Really? Because I know there was more than one occasion where I wanted to string mine up. The whole selling Joseph to the Ishmaelites, I could have done that. If they'd have knocked at my door at just the right moment, I'd have cashed in. We need to be training people to do this. Older people need to say, yes, I do have something to pass on, and I'm going to do it. Not just take that knowledge, sit back in your chair, look back at the young people and laugh. They need to be trained, and it's your job to train them. In 1 Corinthians 11:1, Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ. Paul, he's kind of like the top of the food chain. No, he's not. He's the next link in the chain. And he says, follow me, not because I do everything right. He says, follow me as I'm following Christ. And we know Paul struggled. Paul wrote Romans 7. That's where Paul says, we're seeing this battle inside him, where he says, the things I don't want to do, I do, and the things I do want to do, I don't do. The guy wrote a third of the New Testament. Arguably the greatest missionary of all time. And he struggled with just simple obedience. Yes, just like me. He struggled with that. So he's saying, follow me as I follow Christ. Not in perfection, but in grace and faith. And sharing that message and passing it on. In Hebrews 10, this is what, a lot of people say, well, I can worship God at home and I don't need to go to church. Wrong. He says, let us consider how we may stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is in the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you say the day drawing near. Here's another issue. If I hand off a job to an underling, a young person, if I hand it off to my little disciple-y, if I hand it off to them, is this going to be me? Am I going to be the one stirring up one another to love and good works? Am I going to be the one encouraging? Or am I going to be the one to say, I knew this wouldn't work. I knew you couldn't do it. Just move over. I'll do it myself. In the book of Exodus, there's a time where Moses he's leading like millions of people. And we'll get to young people, don't worry. We'll get to the young people. I'm going to smack them too. In Exodus, Moses is now, he's in charge. I mean, the guy knows God. He knows God. He's had face-to-face conversations with God. And so he's now putting the responsibility of helping the people get to know God. And so he is the judge. When people have a debate or a struggle, they bring it to Moses. And Moses, who knows God, he's going to be the one to arbitrate the decision and help people move along, be godly and stuff. That's what his job is. And Jethro, his father-in-law, comes along. And Jethro, arguably, we can debate this, in the beginning of 18, it says Jethro, the priest of Midian. That sounds like a pagan. Yeah, it does. Okay? It does. But as you read through 18, this Jethro listens to Moses. He meets with Moses because Jethro brought Moses' wife and kids to come see Moses. Moses is thrilled to see him, bows down, and then they connect. Verse 9, and Jethro rejoiced over all the good that the Lord had done to Israel, in that he had delivered them out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Moses said, "Blessed be the Lord, Yahweh, who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of the Pharaoh, and has delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord," okay, so now I know that the Lord, Yahweh, is greater than all gods. Remember, this is a priest of Midian. Because in this affair, they dealt, that he's greater than all gods, because in this affair, they dealt arrogantly with the people. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices. Okay, so translation, Jethro gets saved, listening to the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord. And then once he gets saved, he goes to Moses, he says, "What are you doing trying to be the judge over millions of people? This is ridiculous." What Moses was doing, whether he knew it or not, was, "This is mine. This is my position." And Jethro comes along and says, "Moses, don't do that. Pass it out. Pass it out. Find somebody that commands thousands, and some can command 50s, and some command 10s or 100s. Pass it out. This is not yours to hold alone. This is yours to pass on to other people. Find godly people and give them some of the duties. And then those godly people should find other godly people and pass on some of those duties. And then they should pass on some of those duties." If this church was run by Steve alone, would we succeed? No, this is not the Steve Show. This is Christ Church, and Christ Church requires a body. It requires us. We do church. Okay? And Moses was holding on to this position. He says, "Don't do that. Pass off some of those responsibilities." Okay, young people, back to 2 Timothy 2:2. "Train up those who will train up others also." Young people, you have a role to play. Unfortunately, sometimes, young or old, a lot of us, just don't beat me up after the service. But we've got this idea that church is meant to be spectated. That I'm going to come to church, other people are going to take care of things. Most of us in this room didn't set the thermostat today. The room was clean. Most of us didn't help that. On the contrary, maybe most of us left our Kleenexes under our chairs and our coffee cups and whatnot. Maybe we're part of the problem. But we didn't do that. Somebody else took care of that. And church, we need to get out of this mentality that somebody else will do things. The question is what are you doing? What are you doing to contribute to the body of Christ? Okay? Are you doing anything? And I don't mean just like publicly. You can make phone calls outside of a Sunday morning and still be contributing to the body of Christ. You can send a birthday card. I'm not talking about physical labor in the church. But it's something. It's still part of it. What are we doing? Is this your church? Or is this the old people church that you attend? They'll take care of everything. I'm just here. You fill it in. We struggle with that. Moses needed to hand this off. But Moses could have said, "Jethro, I talk to God. Who are you to say anything to me?" But we don't see Moses do that. We see Moses, who talked with God, listened to the wisdom of those who were older than he was. He listened. I remember when I was 18. Man, I was smart. I didn't listen to anybody because I knew everything. And I look back now and go, what a fool. What an idiot. So we need to be are we willing to listen to wisdom that is being shared? Okay, are we willing to do that? Or what we could do is we could just get mad and we could just go to another church or quit church or I'm not talking to you anymore. We could react that way. Or maybe we should listen to some of the wisdom of those who have gone before us. In 1 Kings chapter 12, in 1 Kings 12, this is when, who is the greatest king, who is the richest king of all time? Solomon. Okay? Solomon, and he entered the golden, we call it the golden age of Israel. Man, he expanded, everybody came to him, he was the top dog. He had money, he had wisdom, he had women. Okay, maybe that last part wasn't very good. He should have had a woman, but instead he had women. And then he built temples for all of them, and he took Israel down a path that Israel just soon not have gone. There's a point in 1 Kings 11, Solomon, this is where God busts Solomon in verse 9. And the Lord was angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice and had commanded him concerning these things, that he should not go after other gods, but he did not keep what the Lord commanded. Therefore, the Lord said to Solomon, since this has been your practice, okay, notice this wasn't an incident. This is his practice. He's good at it. He does it all the time. This is your practice, and you have not kept my covenant, my statutes that I commanded you. I will surely tear the kingdom from you and will give it to your servant. Because of your, old person, because of your sin, the next generation is going to suffer. Let's go to the next generation. He has a son, Rehoboam. Rehoboam has grown up. Not a silver spoon. Maybe it's platinum. I don't know. He was the son of the richest man in history. And now he has the throne. What's he going to do? So he decides, he's debating about what to do. So he asked them, and he asked his counsel in verse 6 of 12:6. Then King Rehoboam took counsel with the old men who had stood before Solomon his father while he was yet alive, saying, how do you advise me to answer this people? And they said, you know what? If you will be a servant to this people. Now, mind you, this is the kid of the richest guy in history. And now the old men are telling him, you be a servant. Kings are not generally interested in being servants. He says, if you will be a servant to this people today and serve them and speak good words to them, when you answer them, then they will be your servants forever. Look, if you'll serve them, they'll give anything for you. They'll do anything if you'll serve them. That's old man wisdom. But then he also asked another group, and he said to them, okay, what do you advise me that we answer? And the young people said, now you're in the position of power. Now let's really fleece the people. You thought Solomon had a rough hold on you. Wait till you see Rehoboam. We got huge discipleship problems here. We've got young people who aren't listening. We've got old. In this passage, the old people are amazing. This idea of passing on to the next generation. This church is not mine. This is the church of Christ that is flowing like a river. And right now, I'm in there for right now. And so are you. And we need to have a discipleship mentality, a passing on mentality to the next generation. We need to be active in training. And we need the young people active in wanting to be trained. And to listen to the wisdom of those that have gone before them. It needs to happen both ways. Both ways. Proverbs 11:14. Now, a proverb, that, mind you, when we taught, proverb is one of the books of wisdom. It is not a promise. It is not a covenant. A proverb is a general rule of thumb. Okay? So which means we're going to find exceptions when we read through the book of Proverbs. In Proverbs 11:14, he says, "Where there is no guidance, a people falls. But in an abundance of counselors, there is safety." Okay? That throws arrogance right out the window. We need an abundance of counselors. Okay? When you're struggling, and you may call up your pastor and say, "Hey, pastor, I'm struggling in this area. I'm going to do my best, but you need more than me. You need to seek out other people." And in this room, there is a ton of wisdom. How many 1,000 years of wisdom are in this room right now? I'm not the source. I am a source. But there's a lot of wisdom in here to seek out other people. When I'm doing premarital counseling, I encourage young couples, find older couples that you like their marriage and go pick their brains. Go ask them, "How I want a marriage like what you have. Teach me what you do." And then listen. Listen. In 12:15, he says, "The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice." A wise man listens to advice. Now, I want to be clear. Is advice always right? No. So we need to use wisdom. But we should seek that advice. And you know what? It might be right. In 15:22, "Without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed." The idea of reaching out to people. When we were talking about merging churches, now for some of you, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But, I don't know, 3 years ago, this room were 2 different local churches. One was at a different building, and then we ended up putting those churches together. Many people were sought out. We were looking for counsel from both sides before we made a decision. If I get hit by a bus today and you need to hire another pastor, do you want to trust one person or do you want to have many advisors? We want many. This is how we should be thinking life is. In 1920, "Listen to advice and accept instruction that you may gain wisdom in the future." Okay? Do we know what's going to happen? No. But there are a lot of wisdom aspects and traits that we can learn and to carry on. Okay? Just because I wasn't alive during the dirty 30s doesn't mean that some of the things that were learned by those people can't apply today. Even though I wasn't there. That's an old person thing. That's old-fashioned. Yeah, those old-fashioned people might have a fair amount of wisdom that I could use today. In Psalm 78, in Psalm 78, we see this idea of passing on. It helps us to see. "Give ear, O my people, to my teachings. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old. Things that we have heard and known that our fathers have told us." Okay, remember, we're watching discipleship in action. "Our fathers have told us, we will not hide them from their children, but tell to the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord and his might and the wonders that he has done. He established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers to teach to their children, and the next generation might know them, the children yet unborn, and arise and tell them to their children, so that they should set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments, and that they should not be like their fathers. Don't be like your fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation whose hearts were not steadfast. In this room, we could fill the lifetime of a psychiatrist. As we get to go back and tell everybody of our daddy issues, and where our parents failed, and, oh, I'm a victim, because my dad did this, and my mom did this. Well, I didn't want my children to be left out, so I passed on a bunch of dumb stuff to them. And as I look to my parents, there are things about my parents that I love and adore and I honor. And then there are things I think, you know what? I'm never doing that. And some of which I stuck to my guns. Some of it, as time has gone on, I found out I'm turning into my father. And my son is going to have to, I hope that I was a better dad than my dad. And I hope my son is a better dad than his dad. I want them to be better. I want to pass this on. This idea of discipleship in the family somehow comes a lot more natural, and yet when it comes to church, some of us want to take a more backseat approach. This is what God wants us to do, is make disciples, to train up those people, to pass that on. Probably, I don't know. I know this isn't Becker's favorite verse, but I know he goes here all the time. In 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12, starting verse 11. Okay, so again, this is Paul teaching his underling pastor, his young pastor, command and teach these things. Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in faith, in love, in faith, in purity. Until I come, devote yourself to the public reading of Scripture, to exhortation, to teaching. Do not neglect the gift that you have, which it was given to you by prophecy when the council of elders laid their hands on you. Practice these things. Devote yourselves to them, so that all who see your progress, so that all will see your progress, not perfection, that they see your progress. Keep a close watch on yourselves and on the teaching. Persist in this, for by so doing, you will save both yourself and your hearers. If we want, what we could do is we could say, as old people, if we weren't here, this church would just collapse. That's an awfully arrogant thing to say. Or we know that Christ loves his church way more than we do. And Jesus says that he gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. That verse was written before Steve was in leadership, and that verse will still be there after Steve is out of leadership. Church is dynamic, and it's complicated, and we've got all kinds of different levels of people. We're all at different places on the same path to get to Christ. We're all at different places. Don't get so big for your britches that you can't see that the church is bigger than you and I. But we still have a role to play. And we need to be faithful in that as we're going on. If you're not doing anything for church, and I'll let you define that however you want. If you're not doing anything, why not? Why not? I think Hudson was over here today. Hudson, were you over here in offering time? Okay, I didn't tell Hudson to do that. I asked for a volunteer, and Hudson said, I can do that. What about the rest of us? You know, to look and to see a need in the church and say, I can do that. I can help with that. I want to contribute. I want to be more of a producer in church, not just a consumer. But to take your place in this path, follow Christ, jump on board, find a ministry that you love, find a ministry and get involved. Find a way to get plugged in. And if you don't know where to get plugged in, come talk to me. Go talk to Corey. Go talk to Eust. Find somebody. Talk to anybody and say, hey, I